This is the Begin Within podcast, where we believe real, lasting health and fitness requires you to start inside before you work out. I'm your host, Nate Slegger, and I'm here to show you behind the scenes of fitness. You already know exercise is good for you, but what about all the other things in life that affect your fitness? If you're looking for extra motivation to get started or to make sure you keep going, this is the place for you.
Produced by BeginWithin.fit.
Improving health is about so much more than just losing weight. But I realize weight loss might be the goal that brought you here to the Begin Within podcast. That's why I wrote my latest book, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss, to reveal the 5 areas that I see are most overlooked by the people that I work with who want to lose weight. Each one of the chapters in this free ebook describes that specific area that you need to focus on to improve your health and get great permanent results. And it also links back here to episodes of the podcast where we've had experts on the show talking about that specific area, so you can benefit from those previous episodes while you're learning about how to maximize the results that you're after. You can get your free copy of my ebook, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss, by going to beginwithin.fit/ebook or going to the link in the show notes. Now is a great time to do a little multitasking while you're listening to the start of this episode. Head over to grab your free copy of my book, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss. If you missed the URL, here it is again, beginwithin.fit/ebook, or there is a link in the show notes for you. Grab your copy, and now let's get on with today's episode. We've got Dr. Adrienne Youdim back on the Begin Within podcast with us this week. I'm so happy that she's here. I'm happy that she agreed once again to jump on the show with me here and do a quick interview. I saw a post that she did on Instagram not too long ago, and I said, hey, would you come on the show again and talk about exactly what you mentioned in your post? I feel like it's a hugely overlooked way that you and I can benefit ourselves, improve our health, improve our wellness. So she's going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the experience that led her to do the post, but also what is going on beneath the surface as we connect with nature. Little spoiler alert for you there. That's what we're focused on in this episode, is finding ways to connect with nature, and of course the benefits that go with that. So listen as she talks about what's going on beneath the surface. She's going to talk about the nervous system, give you a little crash course on the nervous system. We've talked about it before on the show, but not quite in this context. So listen as she does that. Also, we're going to talk about the challenge that comes to being outside during the colder months of the year. So if you're listening to this and it's the colder months, the winter months where you are, like it is for me as we're doing the recording, you're going to want to pay particular attention. I think she just has a really, really awesome response to kind of my challenge that I throw out to her about, hey, what about winter? We don't want to be outside. It's freezing cold. Listen as she responds to that. And then lastly, she's going to talk about the concept of her book. She is the author of a really awesome book, and now she's got a TED Talk out about the same concept. So listen as she talks about the concept of leaning into hunger. That's what she talked about the last time that she was here on the Begin Within podcast. So check out her book, check out her TED Talk, and listen as she describes the concept. It's a good chunk of our conversation, but such an important concept for all of us to listen to and to appreciate how it's showing up in our life. All right, that's enough for me. Here's my interview with Dr. Adrienne Youdim.
we all know that like at the very moments that we need the thing is when we don't do the thing, right? So like when we really need the exercise as a stress reduction because our boss is killing us is precisely the time that we throw in the towel on exercise. And so this was kind of I guess kind of similar in that things were really super hectic for me. I had back-to-back speaking engagements lined up. And so I had been asked to speak at this school up in the woods area in Malibu, which is like a good, it could be like a good 40 minute, let's say 45-minute drive. And if you take the scenic route, you go through the beautiful windy streets that take you through the back into Malibu. And so I drive the scenic route and God, I'm feeling so good. I even turned down the radio because I'm just taking it all in. And there's trees everywhere and mountains. And those feel-good moments where you're just like, yeah, Adrienne, you go and look at that tree. It's so beautiful. And I just felt like literally I was like jiving off of the nature and I was feeling so high. And so I get there 45 minutes later and I give them, they want my ID to see who I am, identify me. And so back and forth and back and forth. And finally I want to be like, do you know who I am? It's Dr. Adrienne Youdim, because he was having trouble letting me in. And I pull up the email for the invitation to this speaking engagement. And lo and behold, it says that I'm supposed to be there like in another week.
You were just early.
It's really early. Now, like that cut at least an hour and a half of driving or an hour and a half of driving into my day. Forget the like blow dry, the lipstick time. I spent a lot of time to do this thing that now I wasn't doing. But I really realized that like that's what I needed. I needed to take 45 minutes up and 45 minutes down this windy hill of trees and green and nature to really bring me back into myself. And the beautiful thing is that is our experience if we let it be, and that the science also backs that up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I that day or shortly thereafter, I saw you post about this experience and you mentioned the benefits of just getting some nature into life. And that's when I was like, let's do this. Let's get on an episode. Let's talk about how nature can benefit us in our health in terms of stress and a reduction of anxiety. Do you mind talking a little bit about some of the behind the scenes, like what's happening inside of us when we're spending time in nature?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, one of the things that prompted me to do that Instagram post, other than the fact that I had blown dried my hair and I needed to take advantage of that fact. No, but what had happened, earlier, I think that day or the day, just, that week was that the United States Preventive Task Force Services. So there's this task force that basically says, you should get a mammogram every year. You should get a colonoscopy starting age 40 or 45. So they dictate kind of all the prevention that we should be doing. And that's what we as physicians base our guidelines on. So on that particular week, they had given out a recommendation that was very out of character and very surprising, which was that they recommended the evidence-supported screening all humans age 8 and over for anxiety on an annual basis. Age 8. And I have a 9-year-old at home, and that was like, wow, that really struck me. Because again, this task force doesn't give willy-nilly guidelines, and they only do things in which the time warrants or the effort warrants the necessity. And you've been in a doctor's office lately, there's not a lot of time there. So if a task force is saying that we should actually be taking time away from all the things that we do in order to screen for anxiety, which is time intensive, there's got to be a serious need. And so it just kind of showed me how prevalent anxiety is right now, not only in adults, but also in our children. And I'm all about, I'm a physician, I can prescribe drugs, but I'm all about how lifestyle or what measures we can take that are readily available and accessible to live better, essentially. Like, what do we have at our disposal? And one of those things is nature. And the science shows that actually being in green space, and now they talk about blue space, which is like the oceans and such, that being in nature literally dials down the sympathetic nervous system and ramps up the parasympathetic. So what does that mean? Our nervous system has two major pathways. Sympathetic is basically fight, flight, or freeze. It's the part of your nervous system that moves you to do something, right? A lion roars and you're going to hightail out of there. It's also the part of our nervous system that gets released when we get a mean comment on Instagram, or our partner says something to us that's hurtful. We get that same stress response as if we're running for our lives and away from a tiger. Okay, so that means heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, pupils dilate so that we can see further. There's all of these physiologic changes. Digestion shuts down because if a tiger's about to kill you, who cares about digesting, last night's pizza? So everything goes towards action. Whereas parasympathetic is rest and relax, the digestive part, the soothing part, and literally heart rate goes down, blood pressure goes down, skin temperature goes down. So they've done these studies where not only have they put people in nature, but you're not going to believe this, Nate. They expose people to like a scary movie, and then one group gets a subsequent video of the urban setting, and then the other group gets a video of nature. And then they check all these physiologic parameters like heart rate, blood pressure, skin temp, all the stuff that I talked about. And they show that the people who got exposed to the nature videos have a return to like a normal, restful physiology, as opposed to that other group that was scared and then given urban settings are still exhibiting that fight or flight in response to the scary movie. So like, you don't even have to go be in nature. You can just YouTube video of nature and that will have an impact on your nervous system. So it's pretty profound what being in nature can do for you.
That's awesome. My wife, she doesn't listen to this, but if she did, she would be like, yes, I told you. She loves, like, when she does her morning routine, reading, meditation, prayer, she'll put on YouTube with like a stream or a beach with the waves. It's just like her thing. And I just prefer silence, but that's it. I was going to ask you, what's the easiest way to get the benefits here? And
yeah,
there it is.
I don't want to discourage people from making time to getting out and literally feeling the tree, because everything is incremental benefit. And I tend to do what we do as Americans, and as a physician, I tend to put metrics on things, right? So here I am telling you about the systolic blood pressure and the diastolic. But honestly, like, even if we took all of that out and just really dialed into how we feel, like, isn't that enough? Like when you go take a walk outside or you go for a hike, and if you can like turn off the noise, or dial back, turning off may be ambitious, but dial back the noise in your head and just kind of try and be in the moment and present, you'll notice that you feel good, right? And these days, I feel like we're doing so much to feel better because we don't feel good. We were on high alert even pre-pandemic. We were disconnected and disenfranchised even before social injustice blew up in our face. And now on this side of it, it's just compounded. And I hear this and I see this every day in working with patients, and with my friends and with my family and with my own children. Everyone, we are all amped up. And so I really think that instead of saying I don't have time, and I get it, I have 3 kids, a business, a medical practice, I could easily say I don't have time. Instead of saying I don't have time, say I'm taking responsibility for my own well-being. And that's not to say that if you're clinically depressed, hugging a tree is going to necessarily make you feel better. I don't want to diminish the severity of what people are experiencing. So get help, go see a therapist, take meds, but try and expand your bandwidth to incorporating these things into your life, because they feel good and they will help you manage the chaos that we are living in right now. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Um, I live in Wisconsin, like and it's winter, gonna be winter, maybe by the time this airs. Any recommendations for us? I feel like people in my vicinity are gonna be like, that's great, but what about during the winter? Um, what
You
would you
know,
recommend for us?
you're going to laugh at me because I know, because you already laughed at me before we started recording, because I'm in Los Angeles and, I'm wearing something that barely shows a little bit of flesh and I'm freezing. And I think it's like 60 degrees in LA right now. So I guess, so maybe you guys won't take my advice if you're sitting in like sub-zero weather. But when we have a little bit of a season here, like on Sunday it was raining, and I just had a conversation about this with my friends because they were binging on some show they're all watching on Netflix, and I actually put a poncho or a, hoodie on, and I went
Yeah.
to the farmers market. um if you can change your mindset around what you're experiencing, and see the beauty in what is there. I mean, for those of us, and we're joking about this, but for those of us who don't get seasons, we really long for that stuff. I mean, our bodies are physiologically also trained to experience the change in seasons and to eat foods that belong to different seasons so that we get a well-rounded diet. I mean, there's some synchronicity between the way the world works and the way we're supposed to live in it. And so you have jackets. I'm not saying to,
Yeah,
go out there,
parkas.
but really, but really, Nate, like, don't you think there's a beauty in just going out, being well protected, insulated, and just like enjoying? You don't have to be out there for an hour, even 5-10 minutes of being in that
Yeah.
nature has a value.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say it's how we hold it in mind, if you would allow me to say that without throwing tomatoes at me.
I would definitely allow you to say that. I absolutely 100% support what you said. But it's nice to have someone else say it. Yeah, we love our winter gear, but yeah, I think and we have a dog that just loves being outside all year. And so we're outside with him every day for at least 45 minutes to an hour, even on the coldest days. So um we cherish it all year. Like if we didn't get out even in the cold, we would miss it. We need it. We have that, we've experienced that peace and reduction in stress from it so many times that we welcome it, at least at our house. But I know that's what a lot of people will say. What about winter? Nature's great,
Well,
but
can
yeah.
I offer also a practice?
Yeah.
Because this has been very top of mind. You know that I have a podcast also called Health Bite, and I just
Yes.
dropped a podcast on this because it was coming up with my patients last week. And so I had to call it out or talk about it, which is that the way we choose to talk about things is so impactful. And often it's not aligned with how we really feel. Right. So, like, for example, we've spoken about exercise together on another podcast,
Yeah.
on one of your podcasts. And so when people talk about exercise, they usually spew out what they're used to saying, like it's it's torture, it's punishment, it's retribution for the French fries I ate. It's always negative. But then, if they'll tell me about a hike they went with their daughter, and they'll say, "Oh, it was so, connecting and bonding, and I felt so accomplished." And so then I'm always like, "Well, which is it? Is it torture, or is it connecting and bonding and accomplishing?" And I think you could use this exercise when you're talking about how you feel about nature in cold weather, about exercise, about the food that you eat. Make a list and write down all the things that you really feel. How do you feel when you move your body? How do you feel when you eat clean, nourishing food that you cooked for yourself? You could say, I'm punishing myself because I ate pie last night and now I'm having a gross salad. But how do you feel? Like if you feel light and energized and clear-headed and you don't have reflux and you're not bloated and you don't have to unbutton your jeans, I would argue you feel pretty good. But we forget because we're so conditioned to talk about things the way we're conditioned to talk about things.
Yeah.
So I think if we take a step back and really write down how we feel, maybe you're going to curse me when you write about, 20 degrees below, but you may find there's things in there that are actually beautiful that you've forgotten about because of the language that you're using.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great exercise, I think, for us to go through and explore what's really happening, instead of just accepting the cultural norms that we're used to. Complaining about whatever winter
Yeah.
in this instance. Yeah. Okay, cool. I didn't get to ask you before we started recording, so this is going to be a surprise to me. If you don't mind, do you want to talk about your TED Talk recently, or is that
Sure. Yeah.
is
I
that
would love to.
it's okay? All right.
Yeah, I would
Tell
love
me
to.
about it.
As you know, my day job is as a physician that specializes in weight loss and nutrition. But the book that I published last year called Hungry for More explores emotional and spiritual hungers and how they present themselves as a desire for food. And so my TED Talk that should be live by the time this airs is a 10-minute synopsis. It's actually 12 minutes. It was supposed to be 10, but I spoke for 2 minutes extra. As you know, I'm a wordy, talkative person. I spoke 12 minutes, but it basically gives the essence of why we use food. And if food is not your thing of choice, maybe it's smoking, alcohol, overworking even, which we think is a prized habit, but why we use food to soothe difficult emotions. And instead of being ashamed of the weight gain or the fact that we're drinking every night, or ignoring it or turning, our face away from it, if we can turn towards that hunger and try and understand what is it really signifying, right? So that moment that you're not hungry for food and yet you find yourself in the pantry, like, what is it that you're really hungry for? And when I've done this work with patients, incredible things have come up, like simple things like it's, midnight and I'm watching Netflix and I really just need sleep. Or it's midnight or whatever, after dinner, and my husband's already asleep and he always falls asleep before I do. And we haven't had time together for months and I really miss him. That's powerful stuff, right? And so if we can pause and lean into the hunger instead of being ashamed of it and try and understand what it is we're really hungry for, it can be not only our ticket to weight loss, which is what everybody's, wanting, but something more meaningful and powerful, which is identifying that unmet emotional need that makes us want to soothe. So that's now 2 minutes of the 12 minutes that I talk about in a little bit.
Awesome. What is the best way for us to connect with you? I'm sure that will be linked on your site. How could someone follow your work?
So if you're into Instagram, at Dr. or Dr. Adrienne Youdim, my full name, is where I post almost every day, and I'll post on the TED Talk when it goes live, if it isn't already. If you're not an Instagrammer, you can go to my website at Dr. Adrienne Youdim and get onto the weekly newsletter where I will send you my shenanigans once a week.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Adrienne Youdim, thank you so much for being here once again.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Take care and bundle up, Nate.
I want to thank Dr. Adrienne Youdim for being back with us here on the Begin Within podcast. And you know that I love that conversation so much. I love her approach and the way that she explains things so clearly. It is so important for you and me. And I think it's such an often overlooked area of health and wellness, the idea of connecting with nature, getting outside, spending some time in nature. I recently saw a post somebody had. I apologize, I can't credit the author for this, but it said this. It said, you should spend 20 minutes sitting in nature every day. Unless you're really busy, then you should spend an hour. I thought that was so powerful, and I absolutely agree. I think that the busier we are, the more that we need to slow down, the more we have to take time to connect with the world around us, the natural world around us. And research shows, just like we talked about with Dr. Youdim, that it works. There are real benefits that come to us. So I'm so appreciative that we had an opportunity to look beneath the surface at what is going on with our nervous system and how this whole process works, how nature really benefits us. And wherever you are at in the world, my challenge to you, my action step for you is this: get outside, get out there, connect with nature, spend some time outside if possible, get some sunlight on your face, get some fresh air in your lungs, and enjoy the world that is out there. Even if, like me, you are dealing with colder weather, you're dealing with the winter, just experience it. Just get out and do what you have to do to stay warm, bundle up, put your hat and your gloves on, but get outside for a little bit today and tomorrow. And if possible, build that into your regular routine. And even if it's not possible for some crazy reason for you to be able to get outside every single day, and I'm not just talking about walking from your car into a building or from your house to the car. I mean, really being intentional about just getting out there and just taking a walk, or even just standing and breathing and enjoying the outdoors for a little bit. If for some reason it's not possible, then at the very least, seek out a way that you can connect with nature. Spend some time looking out the window at the tree in your yard, or the birds or the squirrels or whatever it is that's nearby your house, or flip on a YouTube video at the very least, and you can connect with nature that way. So be intentional about it. That's your action step. Connect more deeply and notice how it affects you. Notice how you feel afterward. And more than likely, I have a feeling you're going to want to keep it a part of your life, just like so many of us do. Dr. Youdim's links are in the show notes, the ones that she mentioned, so that you can connect with her, check out her TED Talk, follow her on Instagram. And while I have you, speaking of Instagram, if you wouldn't mind being so kind as to take a screenshot of yourself listening to the episode right now, it's only going to take a few seconds, and then post it to your stories and tag me. You could also tag Dr. Youdim if you'd like, just so that we can say hi, that we can connect with you and give you some appreciation for listening to the show. And I do appreciate you so much for being here with me week after week here on the Begin Within podcast. I will talk to you again very soon.